Haibaraai, originally called Miya no Shiho as a character who appeared in 129 episodes, her popularity is incredibly high. In various popularity polls, she often surpasses the heroine of this anime, Ran, to become the most popular female character, and sometimes even surpassing the protagonist. Some people may think that Haibaraai is so popular only because she looks cute, but generally speaking, a viewer's favorite character is someone that is similar to themselves, but can do things that they can't do. A little inferiority complex or minor flaws can make this character more humane and more popular with the viewers, because what the viewers want is not a flawless, but a close to flawless character. Basically, every Detective Conan fan knows that the early stages of Detective Conan's character design is very templated, and all the main characters can basically be divided into 4 categories. The first kind is like Shinichi, that sort of ideal type, who is not only smart and handsome, but also has a variety of skills, a strong family background, and a beautiful girlfriend. To be honest, when I was doing Conan's character analysis, it took me a long time, and I still couldn't even find one of his flaws. It was really too perfect. What's even more exaggerated is that there are many similar personality types like him in Detective Conan. Hakuba Saguro, Hattori Heiji, and Kaito, etc, etc. Even some characters who only appear for 10 minutes seem to just look perfect. The second kind is the troublemaker type. Sometimes, in order to extend the time to solve a crime, troublemaker characters like the detective boys are often needed to add chaos or make the situation more dangerous. The third kind is the changing type, like Mori Kogoro and Ran, only at certain times being useful and at other times responsible for just calling the police and being a spectator. And finally, the last kind is like haibaraai, the support type. She's not as impressive as Conan, but would never cause any trouble. Whenever Conan encounters some difficulties, he'll always seek Haibara's help, and Haibara will never hesitate to choose to help. Although sometimes he wants her help, Haibara will request Conan send her some brand name bags, but these behaviors can just be regarded as one of the interesting interactions between them. After understanding the position of Haibaraai in the anime, let's take a look at her experience and personality changes. When Haibara was still called Cherry, her personality was quite cheerful, as she liked to eat sweets, enjoy drinking coffee at work, and really relied on her sister. However, after her sister was killed, she betrayed the organization and took the APTX 4869 pill she invented and turned into a child. Finally, she went to Kuro Shinichi, who had the same experience as herself, for help, and was then picked up by Professor Agasa. This is pretty much what Miya no Shiho experienced before her debut in episode 129. After her debut, she changed her name to Haibaraai in order to hide her identity. Haibara, translated into English, means gray, and I has 2 meanings. The first is I as in love, and the second is I as in sorrow. Of course, according to her personality, she would definitely choose the second one, which would then be Gray Sorrow. Like her new name, Haibara had a very dark and sad personality in the early days of Detective Conan. It's similar to how she likes to metaphorize herself to a shark escaping from the deep dark sea, not being accepted by anyone. At this time, she displays a pure avoidant personality disorder, not taking the initiative to be in contact with others, always being afraid and avoiding something. It feels just like a heroine in tragedy. But if we change the perspective, we can see it in a completely different context. First up is Haibara's most feared person, Jin, who even just appearing in a dream can scare Haibara awake. Although Jin didn't make many appearances in the anime, every time he did appear, he would always remind me of the horror of the Black Organization. Except of course, other than that time, that helicopter was shot down by Conan. In the 311 episodes of the anime, Conan used his identity as a child to set up many traps for vodka, like deliberately keeping him waiting, then extracting his blood type from the cigarette butt he used, and using tape to obtain his fingerprints. Finally, even placing a transponder in the case. However, after Jin came over, relying on his powerful counter-surveillance ability, all the traps set by Conan were cracked. If it weren't for his reliance on his kid size to be able to hide in the coin locker, even for Conan, it would be over. From then on, it was not only Haibara, but Conan would also dream of Jin and be scared awake. Therefore, faced with such strong opponents, the reason for Haibara being constantly afraid is understandable. On the other hand, although she's extremely afraid of that organization, when she was actually caught, she showed a calmness more than anyone else. In order to not endanger anyone she knew, Haibara gave up on running away, and, like confessing her last words, told Conan about the progress of the APTX 4869 research. During this time, Conan told her to yell for help and let the waiters come to her rescue, but Haibara still chose to refuse, because she didn't want to involve innocent strangers. The same thing also happened on the bus and on the train, but no matter which time it was, Haibara always chose to take care of everything on her own without involving others. No matter how tragic her fate was, she never complained about her destiny. At the same time, Haibaraai is not just a princess who only knows how to wait for knights to save her. She knows how to shoot and has driving skills as well as courage, which both Fujiko and Lupin admire. Especially when she held a gun at Conan, that kind of dark queen feeling was full of a mature woman's charm. Therefore, when facing the detective boys and Agasa, she always has this kind of maternal brilliance. For example, one time when Ran came to camp and got sick, Haibara cooked and took care of everyone. And when Conan is gone, she'll imitate Conan and guide the children to solve the puzzle. In the later stages, Agasa really looked like a child in front of Ai, because Haibara has studied medicine, so she was helping Agasa control his blood sugar level. As a result, Agasa is like a child who asks his mother for sweets, and even when he can't take a bath, he would ask his mother for help. If I were to use a Japanese term to describe the current haibaraai, it would be Yamato Narishiko. In addition to maturity, Haibara's biggest feature is cuteness. This cuteness is not only being cute on the outside, but also the kind of cuteness that when combined with her background and voice, can inspire a human's desire for protection.
そちらに行ってから食事に。
あれれとかおかしいぞとかちょっと抜けてる子供のふり私持ってないだってすまぬすまん王子さんが悪かった博士なんとかして痛いよずっとそばにいてね
To be precise, her cuteness is a skill that can weaken and attract all characters other than Conan, getting the information that she wants, and even having the ability to mock certain characters like Uncle Mori. In fact, I'm a little curious about what would happen if Sherry did this in front of Jean, but in any case, Jean's poker face would no longer exist. Of course, one of the reasons Haibara is so popular is because of her voice actor, Hayashibara Megumi, who is also the voice actor of Jessie from Pokemon and Rei Ayanami from Eva. So, Haibara-ai's voice is both cute and has a kind of mature charm. Every time she interacts with Mitsuhiko, it always gives me a feeling like Jessie is trying to catch Pikachu. But I know that most of the viewers are more interested in her relationship with Conan rather than Haibara's growth as a character. To put it bluntly, in the beginning, their relationship was very poor. Haibara regarded Conan as an experimental product of hers, and Conan regarded Haibara as a murderer. But as Haibara cried out in front of Conan for the first time and complained about why he didn't save her sister, the relationship between them started to improve. Conan is always the first to ask Haibara for help when in trouble, and although Haibara may complain, she has been silently supporting and worrying about Conan behind his back, as she is always the first to discover when Conan gets injured. It can be said that if Edogawa Conan is Sherlock Holmes, then Haibara-ai is the character closest to Irene Adler. So when Haibara would later ridicule herself as a murderer, Conan would just smile awkwardly and would never admit that he was too one-sided at the beginning. Because although the APTX 4869 was invented by Haibara, her original intention was not to kill people. At the same time in Detective Conan, the thing that killed the most people is probably cyanide. But who would call Carl Wilhelm Scheele a murderer? The relationship between the two of them trusting each other and bullying each other makes every interaction between the two of them very interesting.
こんなダサい帽子でもすっごい可愛い子が被るとってね。返せ。
This level of interaction is relatively friendly, because Conan has zero EQ for any females other than Ran, and Haibara is the type of girl who is very sensitive and vengeful, so their daily routine is just like this. Once, Conan saw Haibara's naked body and said that it didn't matter if a child's body was seen. Then Haibara put chili powder in Conan's pants and called Ayumi over to look at Conan's ass and repeated what Conan just said. Conan's first crime was to use his wisdom to spy on Haibara's privacy, and every time Haibara and Conan would grab something, she would yell pervert and let everyone regard Conan as a sexual harasser. Not only just Conan, but Haibara having a teasing personality also works on other people like Hattori Heiji, as she recorded when Heiji confessed to Kazuha and set it as her phone ringtone. These interactions with Conan are based on friendship, so are there any romance elements between them? The answer is, of course, but it's all just Haibara's unrequited love, which has been hinted at countless times throughout the anime. Ever since Conan put his glasses on Haibara at the party venue and claimed that this was a prop used by Superman to hide his identity, and after Conan rescued a desperate Haibara on the bus, every time Ai appears, she would focus her eyes on Conan alone. In episode 156, and in the film Captured in Her Eyes, Ai directly confessed to Conan. Although Ai said that these two times were just acting to encourage Conan, in the eyes of others, Ai's emotions towards Conan are very obvious. For example, like Shinichi's mother, who could easily see that Haibara's eyes are always on Conan. In Sunflowers of Inferno, there's also an old grandmother who sees this and asks Ai to face her true emotions without leaving any regrets. Ai's reaction after hearing this was just being shy. This situation became more and more obvious in the later stages. Ai would be shy after being thanked by Conan. When she gave Conan the antidote of the APTX 4869, she warned him not to be too affectionate with Ran when he returns to his normal size. Especially in OVA 12, a fortune-telling section in a magazine told her that in order to attract the attention of people you like, you have to change your image. As a result, Ai puts on a hat and glasses, then stares at Conan, although he didn't notice at all. By the way, the hat and glasses were two gifts that Conan gave to Ai to hide her identity. At the end of this episode, she advised people to not have a cold attitude towards people that they like. I believe that this sentence is what Ai said to herself. Compared to Ran, Ai's personality is more of a tsundere, but she has almost all the advantages of Ran except for combat power. She can cook, take care of children as well as the elderly, and likes and trusts Conan or Shinichi. At the same time, there are a lot of things about Haibara that Ran doesn't have. If you stand in the viewer's perspective, some people may hate Ran, because she doesn't know that Conan and Shinichi are the same person. Although Conan tries his best to protect her every time, she still complains about why Shinichi always ignores her, not to mention Ran is always being kidnapped. But from Ran's perspective, everything she did is reasonable. On the other hand, from Ai's perspective, there's no need to worry about these issues. Every time Ai is worried about Conan, Conan is worried about Ran, and Ran is worried about Shinichi. Thus, I would always feel that Haibara is a bit pitiful. This may also be the reason why she can surpass Ran in every popularity vote. Although Ai and Ran should be in a competitive relationship to some extent, when the two of them stay together, the animesphere has always been very awkward because of the lack of common ground. But the two of them have never hated each other. On the contrary, Ran treats Ai with a protective desire. And although Ai compares herself to a shark and Ran to a dolphin, this is because Haibara feels the same feeling in Ran, just like her sister, a cheerful personality that makes her envious and scared. Especially after being protected by Ran, she began to accept her slowly. By the way, according to Conan's IQ, I believe he has already known that Ai is very dependent on him. But in order to not destroy their current relationship, and in order to not embarrass Ai, he pretends to be a fool every time and deliberately treats her as a partner instead of as a woman. After all, in Detective Conan, the setting of a childhood friend is basically the same as a married couple. Ai probably also knew this, so she didn't confess to Conan in order to not embarrass the relationship between them. As a result, the current Ai has now changed from a sorrowful Ai to a loving Ai. With the help of Conan and the detective boys, she changed from a queen of darkness to a gothic lolly, and finally becoming an idol fan like Uncle Mori. I, like a child, feeling excited before meeting Ebizo and thinking about what clothes to wear, being more shocked to see her idol in a relationship than when she sees Jin. The personality and role in a plot between her have already been replaced by Mary, so the change of Ai is logical and will not have much impact on the main storyline. Once in an interview, the author of Detective Conan, Aoyama Gosho, declared that when Detective Conan ends, one of the protagonists may be sacrificed. This leads many people to speculate that haibaraai is that very victim, because regardless of her personality or position, she's most likely to die in the finale. But please remember that this is just a possibility, and Aoyama Gosho is an author who listens to his fans very much. He originally designed Furuya to be a true member of the Black Organization, but because he's too badass and popular, he changed him to be an undercover agent of the National Police Agency. The reason why Aoyama Gosho reduced Ai's dark personality and added another character that resembles her is to deliberately remove her from the main storyline and protect her as much as possible. It can be seen that the author doesn't want the most popular character, Ai, to die in the finale, and doesn't want to make the readers and viewers sad. At the same time, the current Detective Conan has almost a 99% sureness that there will be a happy ending. The protagonist team, along with the CIA, FBI, and National Police Agency, plus a bunch of undercover agents in the Black Organization, etc., can directly steamroll the enemy. Now, let's see how much power the Black Organization has. Tequila died, Calvados committed suicide, Kusera Rikumichi committed suicide, Irish was killed by teammates, Bisco was killed by teammates, Miyano Akemi was killed by teammates, Azon Hondo went undercover and died, Scotch went undercover and died, Sherry betrayed, Rye Whiskey went undercover, Bourbon went undercover, Mizunashi Dana went undercover, Chianti and Korn are professional snipers who specialize in killing their teammates, and Vermuth is Conan Around's caregiver, being half a traitor. Vodka is a professional driver, Rum is over half 100 years old chef, and Karusuma Renya is over 100 years old, and whether he's alive or dead is unknown. Jin is the only one who works seriously among his colleagues, and these records also don't include a bunch of undercover agents killed by Jin in film 20. This is the Black Organization? Come on, this is obviously an undercover training organization, and Jin is obviously the only one who doesn't know the situation and still works there. At the same time, the deaths of almost all the Black Organization's members are basically either suicides or being killed by their teammates. The author really wants to make the protagonist team's members into perfect righteous heroes, not even letting them dirty their hands. This also caused the current main storyline to be too one-sided, completely lacking the excitement of the previous duels. Unless Conan is now the Black Organization's undercover agent, they will not even have a 1% chance of winning. So there's no need to worry that haibaraai will die in the finale. And Detective Conan can serialize more than 1,000 episodes, more than other detective shows, largely in part because of the help of characters like Haibara, which attracts many viewers who are not interested in detective dramas, because Haibara's charm is not only effective towards men, but also popular among women. Just imagine that there's such a person by your side. She's been harassed by stalkers every day, and she always looks scared and timid, which can inspire a human's protective nature. This forced her to look dark and cold, but behind that, she is gentle with everyone, including strangers. And also, because she's a medical expert, she can help you control your weight and health and has a maternal aura. She can also become an attractive mature person or a cute petite person, and appearing very badass during critical moments. She knows how to cook and knows all kinds of fashion knowledge. Every time she goes out with you, she wears different clothes, and she's also proficient in makeup techniques. As I said in the beginning, the flawed haibaraai is the closest to a perfect character in Detective Conan.